Hey everybody, and welcome to week 2 of the Spring Stitch Sampler Knit Along. This is the video walkthrough for the dotted wave stitch. I'm going to show you how it's worked row by row, and then I'll show you what it looks like if you use different colors, lights and dark colors for color A and color B, and at the end of this video we'll even look over the chart that's provided on the instructions. I am using a new swatch this week so that I don't have to worry about lining up the stitch multiples with last week's size. So don't worry that it's a small piece, but you aren't supposed to be casting on anew for this week. You should be just continuing the work that you did last week. So yours will actually be one continuous piece. As you can see, I've already worked the first 2 rows. As the instructions say, knit 2 rows in color B. This makes a nice dividing line between the different stitch patterns so that when you're looking at the finished project, there's a clean visual break between where one starts and one ends. So I just worked down and back in color B, which is what you're going to do. And again, my color B is Monet. I'll show you what the skein looks like. It's getting a little wonky in its old age. Lots of use from that guy. So that's available just about everywhere. You can find it on the internet. It is Red Heart, so it's super easy to find. I guess if you're in the United States, I should say. Relatively simple and inexpensive. For my other color, which is color A, I'm using a color that's called White, also by Red Heart. Again, it's got some wear and tear, but I think that's for my cats. So just plain old white. And again, I picked these two because they're contrasting colors. They look good together, but you can still see the stitch definition between where one begins and one ends. And that is what really makes mosaic technique pop. Okay, so before we get started, I'm gonna let you know this is a repeat. We're gonna do more than one. Last week we just did one pyramid, so one repeat, and this week has a couple in there. This is a really, really narrow stitch. And last week was a bit wider, but this one's a multiple of 6 plus 2. So I'm actually gonna be using 14 stitches, so it's gonna have 2 multiples here, and you can really tell this is about as wide as one multiple of last week, so you can really see how narrow it is. I have provided 2 sets of written instructions for this one as well. The second set of instructions is condensed, so it groups together, you know, the rows that are the same in the written pattern. I know that can be a little confusing for folks who are learning a new technique, so I've left it longhand as well. So the first time you'll see it, it'll have row 1, row 2, row 3, and so on. The next time you see it, it'll have row 1, 13, and 29 because they're all the same row, and just provide those instructions once. So work through whatever works best for you. If you do get lost in patterns easily, probably stick with the full version and just tick off those rows as you work through them. So I'm going to add my second color. Remember, in mosaic knitting, we switch colors on every odd row. So this is technically row 3. But since these were setup rows, we're starting with row 1 of our 2-week pattern. So it is time to switch regardless. And I'm going to be adding my white. Again, nothing fancy you need to do here. Just start knitting with the white and let the tail fall. And let's get started. So row 1, which is the same as 13 and 29, if you see when you look at the chart, you'll be able to tell that they match as well. Knit 5, slip 1, knit 2. Okay, so I'm going to knit 5, and I should say it's knit 5, slip 1 until we get to the last 2. Oops, let me get in frame for you guys. Sorry about that. There we go. Yeah, I got a little out of frame last week. Some folks said they had some difficulty following that. Also, some folks asked about slipping. Which way should you be slipping? And you should always be slipping purlwise. I know that I am not slipping purlwise as I say that, right? I'm a combination knitter, so when I purl, I wrap, quote unquote, the wrong way. So I'm used to, in my work, reseating my stitches as I go. All right. So if you don't want to have a twisted stitch, you slip purlwise every time, or you're going to have to do what I do, which is when I get to it this way, I slip it the other way, just to put it back in the right position. You can slip whichever way you want technically. as long as when you get to the end, you don't have a twisted stitch, you know, once you've done your second pass. And remember, for even rows, we're always working the stitches that we knit as knits. We're working the slips as slips. We're just slipping with the yarn in front instead of back. Now this is gonna get a little tricky right here because this is kind of loose. So I'm just gonna gently work it and then give it a little tug to get the tension right. Whoop, whoop. Nope, lost it. Just kidding. Just kidding. Try it one more time. There we go. I think when I tugged it, I lost it that last time. So this is row 1. It's the same as 13 and 29. And at least for my particular swatch size, it works up nice and even with just 2 at one end. Okay. So row 3, again, I'm switching back because every time I'm starting on this side, I'm going to be switching colors. Do have a few little tails that I'm working with here. Okay, so knit 2 to start. And again, this is for the swatch size, so your size may be different, your setup stitches and your edge stitches. But mine is knit 2, and then the repeating portion is slip 1, knit 3, slip 1, knit 1. So I'm going to slip 1, knit 3, slip 1, knit 1. Okay. Slip 1, knit 3, slip 1, knit 1, and that takes me to the end. Okay, so this is what I have so far. Turn and continue down. Someone did ask about slipping the first stitch of each row. That is something that that knitters do to keep things looking nice and neat. But in the case of mosaic knitting, it doesn't really work out so well because if you're slipping the stitch that's here and then starting with this stitch, this is a slipped stitch. So it doesn't really work to do that. And then when you're switching colors, it also doesn't work because then you're getting the first color of the last row. The first stitch of this row is the color of the last row. So basically the answer is I do not recommend slipping the first stitch. Okay, so there we go. That was row 3, and coming back on 4. For row 3, it's the same as row 15, 27, and 39. So you're going to hear me say over and over how many rows. This one has quite a few repeats. I don't think there's a single row that's only worked once. So we're going to work through 11, and then after that there's no more non-repeating rows. Okay, so we're on row 5, which is the same as 17, 25, and 37, of course. We're going to start with a knit 3. And you may find that when you switch colors, you do have a bit of like wonky tension happening. You can just kind of give it a little tug and make sure it looks right, and then keep moving. Whoops. Making sure that you're working with the right yarn, right? Okay, so I'm at a knit 3, and then I'm going to slip 1, knit 5. This one's got some nice runs of single colors, which makes it faster to work than if you're having to slip every other one. So hopefully this will go quickly. Slip 1, and it says till 5 stitches remain, and then slip 1, knit 4, or knit till end, which is knit 4. So when 5 stitches remained, I slipped 1 and to the end. That is one thing you'll find. A couple of these repeats, in order to make them fit, have been written to say, you know, on last repeat end, You know, if it's typically a repeat of knit 5, it may say on last repeat end knit 4 or knit 3. So that just means those last stitches of the repeat, that's how you end. So you'd work the rest of it normally. And the phrasing all depends on how the sizing worked out. You know, I had tried to make the language consistent between the sizes so it would be easy for you all to follow the same pattern. But of course, if you have questions, you can always ask. Oops, almost split my yarn there. Okay, so that was row 6. So coming up, oh, I am getting a little bit of a tangle. I did warn you guys about this. If you're always turning your work the same way, your yarn will get twisted. That's what happened to mine. Like an old phone cord. All right, there we go. Okay, so that's row 5 and 6 that were worked with color A. We're now on color B again. This is row 7, and it's going to be worked the same way as 19, 23, and 35. Okay, this pattern has lots of rows. So that's why I'm only going over the first 11 with you and not working through the entire thing. This would be a very long video. Oh goodness, I have a cat on the table. Cat on the table. I have no idea. She just ran across my keyboard and it was making some sort of sound. So you guys, that was maybe we can make an outtakes video and put stuff like that on it, but cat interference. Okay, so back to row 7. Sorry about that, gang. Row 7/19/23/35, we're in color B again. We're gonna start with a knit 4. So let me find my color B and knit 4. Cats are new to our family, just to tell you a little bit about us. Our kids decided they wanted cats, and they asked for a cat, and we talked about it and thought we should probably get 2, but we've got 3 kids. I'm gonna slip 1, knit 1, slip 1, knit 3 for this pattern. But we have 3 kids, so we thought 2 cats could potentially be problematic, and we thought, well, if we're gonna get 2, we may as well get 3. We were kind of gluttons for punishment in that regard. And I'm ending this. It says when you get to 4 stitches, slip 1, knit 1, slip 1, knit to the end, which is just 1 more stitch. So we have 3 cats, and we've only had them for about 5 months. So we are still learning, especially me when it comes to knitting. I am still learning, you know, what is it that's going to cause them to get excited and leap on the table. They don't really seem to care about yarn very much, but they do like when I use circulars. They try to pounce on those. And of course, that is what I'm using right now. So that's how we had that cat interference. Almost done. Oops. All right, so rows 7, 19, 23, 35, and 8 look like this. And it is hard to see, but we're starting to see the makings of a pattern emerging in the white right here. Okay, and of course I've got a swatch that's all finished up that I'll show you guys when we go over the colors, so you can really see that pop. And you've seen the finished project as well, so you have an idea of what you're working. Okay, so next it's row 19, which also happens to be 21 and 33. We're back to color A. And again, I'm just carrying the yarn that I'm not working up the side between rows. I'm not doing any sort of snipping or anything like that, and weaving. We're gonna keep that to a minimum. You should only have 2 tails at the beginning and 2 tails at the end. That's 1 of each color to weave in. Okay, so I'm gonna start with a knit 3 and then slip 1, knit 5 across, which seems to be the slip 1, knit 5 is like the repeat of this pattern. So slip 1, knit 5, and then we're gonna end our last one with a knit 4. Okay, and again, this is for the swatch size with the 2 repeats. This is a pattern of 6 plus 2. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then 2. Coming back down, this is our row 10. Sorry, I'm getting a little tangled up. And again, I am using my thumb to kind of help with tension when I'm slipping those stitches. I do tend to go a little tight, so you'll see me put my thumb right here and wrap. It prevents it from wrapping fully against the stitch right there, so that when I knit the next one, I do have a nice amount of room, and it kind of goes naturally to the gauge that it's supposed to be and is nice and even. Okay, so that's row 10. This is the last row I'm gonna work for you. This is row 11, and you can even, I mean, it's even better now. You can start to see the shape emerge. So row 11 is the same as row 31. It's in color B, and we're gonna start with a knit 4. Use my knit 4, and we're going to slip 1, knit 1, slip 1, knit 3. Slip 1, knit 1, slip 1, knit 3. And we're going to end with a slip 1, knit 1, slip 1, knit to end, which is a knit 1. Okay, so that's what that row looks like. I'm going to turn, finish up 12 for you. Some folks in our Facebook group have already shared photos of what they're working on. We've got some beautiful colorways there if you guys want to go check them out. We also have quite a few folks who are working this not in garter stitch but in stockinette. So they're not knitting every row, they're purling the opposite rows. And then I guess there's a wide variety in what people are doing to ensure that they don't end up with curling that stockinette always results in. So some folks are doing their edge stitches or a border and garter stitch. I think others have talked about doing a border, you know, like an I-cord border and applied border afterward. So if that's something you're interested in checking out, you can always check them out in a group. That is with row 12 done. So I've worked 1 through 12. There you go, it's a little better. I've worked 1 through 12, which means I have done, you know, 6/12 rows. 6 of them really are new because the other 6 are you're just repeating what was before. But you've had a chance to see them all now. You're going to continue in the pattern, and then you're going to stop when your work measures from the beginning, 18 or 24 or about 30 inches. And that's from your cast on. And you can end with row 20 or row 40 because this is a super long pattern. So 40 takes you all the way to the end, but if you need to end sooner to make it fit, 20 is the place to be. And I will show you now what this looks like if you switch up your colors. So I've got a swatch here. Let's start with this one. Okay. So this is, if you start with your 2 setup rows are white, so your light color, let me move my scissors. Your light color is your startup. That's what you have right here. And then so your first row, your row 1 is going to be worked in blue. And I think this color is actually just called blue. And so this would be the dividing line. So this is about what it's going to look like once you finish this week and you do those 2 rows, which is 1 down and back of color B, and then keep going. So this one starts with color A in row 1, so your light color in row 1. So it really just depends on what look you like. And you can kind of see, I think that This one probably has a little bit more definition in terms of the waves, because the waves have these little points right here. And I think that's what really kind of makes them pop. So, but you can still see these really well. So it really just comes down to personal preference, right, in terms of what you want. So you guys can choose. Again, this one, the bottom has the white setup and the row 1 is worked in blue, so the darker color, and that results in these blue waves that are kind of framed in white. The top has the blue setup row with the white row 1, and that one results in white waves that are kind of framed in blue. So it's really just about what the look is that you're going for, okay? So now let's take a look at the chart. Remember that the center box of the stitches, you know, we've got the center, which is, you can tell that that's the stitch pattern because the outside tends to be a little more just stripy. So the center is where the actual stitches are for the pattern. So they are the 6 and the 6 plus 2. You guys can hear the jingle jingle of my cats, can't you? So the center stitches are the 6, and then the plus 2, you're going to see there's one box on either side of those. And those are the plus 2 in the pattern, so the edge stitch boxes. And those are going to be the same for every size. They just make sure that the size, each row starts with the correct color, because remember, we can't start a row slipping, we have to start with a knit stitch. So those are kind of anchoring them as to where they should be. And then the stitches that you see in the double boxes on either side, which I think one size, the large size fits perfectly with the edge stitches, so you don't have to worry about any additional stitches. But the medium has one, and the small has one, has stitches on both ends. So these additional stitches, those are to make the size work, because we don't use the same stitch multiple for every stitch in this project. So those make them fit your particular project. So you'll see 2 or 3 or 1 extra stitch just to make it fit your blanket. So you're gonna work, if it's in one of those extra boxes, you're gonna work it once, repeat everything in the middle till you get to the end, and then work your final edge stitches, okay? Again, if you need help with reading that, please stop by our group or leave a comment, let me know, I'll definitely help you out. If you do hate charts, I've heard from some people the charts don't make sense, I just can't do it, I'm going back to the written pattern. Of course you can use the written pattern, I just include both. I'm trying to give you as much information as I can for you to be able to use this in the way that's comfortable for you, okay? So that is it for week 2. It is super helpful for me. If you like this video, you can subscribe if you want to. You'll be notified of future videos. You just click the subscribe button. And if you have questions, you can come to our Facebook group. I put a link down below, and also down below I put a link to the written pattern portion. So that's where you'll find the charts as well as both sets of written instructions. You can see links to all the videos in the series so far and to the spring stitch sampler knit along, and you can see the yarn I'm using and the needles I'm using, and basically anything you could possibly want to know, you can find that below. Again, if you have any questions, I hope to hear from you, and if not, I will see you guys next week when we are halfway done.